Almost everyone in the world is in debt. Yes, everyone. The debt of the United States has exceeded $38 trillion, and this is the highest level in its history. Europe's total debt is in the trillions of dollars. Japan's is the same. Even countries like Saudi Arabia, whose wealth depends on oil, are in debt. Even export giants like Germany and China are in debt. Naturally, one starts to ask, if everyone is in debt, then who is this debt owed to? This is where things start to get strange, because the answer is more complicated than you think. The world is, to a large extent, in debt to itself. But it's not as simple as it sounds, because not everyone benefits in the same way. Today, the world has a total debt of over $300 trillion. This is several times the size of the global economy. If you look at how we got here, the story doesn't start with credit cards or digital banking. We go back to 1694. England is at war and has run out of money. The king goes to merchants and says, "Give me money now and I will pay you back later with interest." To manage this, the Bank of England is established. Even if it wasn't realized at the time, this was a huge turning point. States can now spend money they don't yet have, and what they give in return is essentially a promise. I will pay later. Over time, these promises turn into tradable instruments, government bonds. Then, other countries see this and copy the system. France, the Netherlands, and then the newly established United States. Now, borrowing is no longer a weakness, but rather a sign of strength. Because if you can borrow, it means people trust you. In the past, countries conquered land for gold. Now, they raise money by issuing bonds. Today, the system has become enormous. The U.S. is in debt by trillions of dollars. Japan is as well. And global debt continues to grow every single day. But the main question is still the same. Who is on the other side of this money? Let's take the U.S. as an example. A significant portion of this debt actually belongs to American institutions, banks, pension funds, investment funds, so the state is largely indebted to its own system. Yes, there are foreign countries too, like Japan and China, but their share is much smaller than you might think. In short, the U.S. debt mostly circulates within itself. And this situation is not unique to the U.S. It can also be seen in other countries around the world. For example, Japan lends to the U.S. The U.S. lends to other places. Europe lends to developing countries, and they in turn go and buy assets in developed economies. This is a chain that operates on a global scale. It may sound strange, but it's like a game. Everyone lends to each other, and everyone is a creditor to someone else. But there is another layer to this: financial markets. Behind governments, there are massive institutions, pension funds, central banks, investment funds, etc. These are actually the real decision makers of the system, because they decide who is trustworthy. If trust in a country declines, interest rates rise, the value of its currency falls, and a crisis begins. The role of central banks is also very critical here. For example, institutions like the Federal Reserve actually create new money when they buy government bonds. So while debt is created in one place, in another place, the debt turns into money. That's why this statement is partly true. In today's system, debt and money cannot be separated. This system worked for years because everyone believed in one thing: this system will continue. But when trust is shaken, things change. We saw this in Greece. We saw it in Argentina. When debt becomes unpayable, suddenly the creditors become visible: the IMF, investors, funds, and usually the cost is paid by the public. There is an important reality here. Governments do not plan to fully pay off their debts. So what do they do instead? They borrow again to pay off old debt. This system is called refinancing. So the debt doesn't disappear, it keeps rolling over. And at this point, something interesting emerges. Government debt is actually very valuable for markets because it is considered safe. Banks use it as collateral. Funds hold it as an investment. So ironically, debt has become one of the strongest parts of the system. But this is not equal for everyone, because interest payments usually go to capital owners. This means debt is not just a transfer between countries, but also within society. That's why as debt increases, inequality can also increase. So, where we end up is this. The world is not indebted to a single entity, but it is not a completely innocent cycle either. This system is based on trust, is based on continuously producing debt, and works as long as it stays in balance. But if that balance is broken, everything can change very quickly. In short, debt is not just a burden, it is also a cornerstone of the modern economy.